Hello again. Before I start, I would like to apologise for my lack of videos this month. I had made loads of videos and uploaded them to YouTube, but I've not published them. Now, upon review today, I'm kind of feeling like I don't want to publish them because I just feel like they're just not that good and they're kind of depressing. That's why I've not been uploading. I haven't forgotten about the channel and I do plan on coming back. Anyway, Paddys Potato Peelers did an open tag video on one-handed opening UK legal carry knives. So what we're looking for is knives that we can carry in the UK that we can open with one hand. So of course something like a Swiss Army knife doesn't belong in this video. That sort of thing. So we're looking for knives that we can open with one hand, carry in the UK. The cutting edge must not exceed 3 inches and it must not lock, so we can carry everywhere except of course the pub or the football game or whatever. So we do have a selection of knives here that meets that sort of category. Paddy was looking at it more of the sort of work knife context. I'm just looking at here in the context of pocket knives. He also did mention he wants the knife to be over 2.5 inches. Some of these I think are under that size range, especially the ones at the bottom here. The ones on top are certainly over that. In fact, most of these are around the 3-inch mark. Anyway, we're just going to start off here with the CRKT Edge A, which is an okay. I mean, it's not great. It's nothing to get excited over. It's a really inexpensive pocket knife, the CRKT Edge A. This is one of those knives that I feel that is quite gimmicky because it's got the self-claimed self-sharpening system inside the handle of the knife. You've essentially got a diamond plate for sharpening the knife on a spring, so when you close the knife it's supposed to sharpen it. Now this knife is hollow ground and chisel ground, so if we have a look down the knife you can see that that's hollow, kinda. I mean it's quite shallow if you like, but you've also got a chisel ground here and it's not sharpened on the other side. That's an okay pocket knife option, especially if it's for the context of a work knife, because the standard price for these is about £30, although I only paid 15 for mine because when I bought it, it was on sale. Tip down only, right-handed only. We do have, of course, the opening hole with paracord wrapped around it because the paracord just makes it so much more comfortable. Not a knife that I carry often, but it's still a reasonable option, especially if you can't afford, say, a Spyderco KPK. Next up, the Boker Plus XS. Now this is a good slip joint option that kind of has the characteristics of a locking knife, but it most certainly is not. And this is one of the safer knives in this category, although I'm sad to say that it is a bit more aggressive. That might appeal to you, it might not, that's fine, as long as you're sensible with it. We do have 3 inches on the cutting edge, as well as this choil here to stop the knife closing on the finger, so that would make it a more ideal work knife. Of course it's left and right handed carry and opening, dual thumb stud, and the tip down, no sorry, tip up, I'm getting confused again. The tip up pocket clip can be changed left or right. These come in 3 different colours. You can get the all black, you can get it with the green handle and the sort of stone washed blade, or I need to remember here, the same black handle but with a satin blade. Those knives are roughly the same price, give or take £50 is what you're going to pay for one of these. This is one of my first pocket knives and it's definitely a great option, and of course it is a very popular and well-known UK legal carry option, but as I said, I personally feel like it is a little bit aggressive. Some people disagree, that's absolutely fine. I have to mention the UKPK. I'm not really much of a Spyderco fan. This is just one of those I had to have it knives because, you know, when I first started getting into knives, everyone, and I mean everyone, was talking about Spyderco. They still are. I personally feel like they're a little bit overrated. I still like them. I still think they're kind of cool. It's not my favourite. That's all I'm saying. Just a Spyderco UKPK in general. I feel like these are a little bit overpriced. I mean, these are about the £70 mark. This is just the standard UKPK with the flat ground blade, leaf shape. Of course, it is a slip joint, which is one-handed opening. Now, another Spyderco here. This is one that I actually do quite like, and I find this to be a bit more reasonable, and I personally just get more enjoyment out of it, especially with that orange handle. The Spyderco Spydercal, this was designed for the Danish market as to not be one-handed opening. I mean, you've got a hole in there, so it's still going to be possible to open it with one hand, especially if you do what I did and you put a piece of cable tie in there. Now, I know this is kind of cheating. It's not one-handed opening out the box, although you can do it if you want. It just takes some practice. But with a piece of zip tie or something else on there, it is definitely a one-handed opening option. And cable ties cost next to nothing, and if you can afford one of these, which these cost about £70 give or take as well, I'm sure you can afford to put a piece of cable tie on there. Now, in the context of a work knife, orange, that seems like a good idea. It makes it look more threatening, and if you are working with it, you're taking it in and out your pocket or in and out your bag a lot. The orange, well, if you drop it, hey, look at me, I'm orange, come get me. You know what I mean? Okay, and the last one in this area here is the CRKT Edge Journeyer. I think this is a reasonable option as well. Definitely an easy open, one-handed knife, UK legal. Not a slip joint, this is one of the ball detent joint knives. Reasonably comfortable, left or right-handed, tip up only. Quite inexpensive. You can have these for about 30 or so pounds. I think they might have actually discontinued these because I've not seen them on Heine in a while. They did used to do it with the serrations as well. I kind of wish I picked one of them up, but oh well, no matter. Especially if you want to carry this as a work knife. Now, usually with a work knife, you want it to have a lock, but maybe you want to carry said knife everywhere all the time in the UK legally. Well, if it's got a lock, you can't do that, or at least you risk prosecution. Well, this one has this little tool that comes out, which is just for tightening the pivot on the blade, but it also doubles as a pin. And there's nothing in the law to say that you can't do that, because the law is talking about buttons. They define a lock knife as a folding knife that you have to push a button to close. Well, there's no button there, that's a pin. But I would just consider the area where you're using that. I mean, if you're out sitting in the park using this to cut fruit or whittle with, I probably wouldn't use that pin. In fact, I would just forget it's there. Some people would argue that you should leave that at home. Personally, I would not, because it does serve two purposes, and well, it just folds, there's no buttons. Personal preferences, I suppose. Here are some smaller knives. These are less than 2.5 inches, but you can still open and close these with one hand, and they do not lock. Now, this one is a bit more difficult to do so, but as you can see there, it could be done. The Boker Plus Subcom friction folder. This is the nick knife version, no pocket clip. It looks like it has a frame lock, but it doesn't. It's just a ball joint, so I think that's a reasonable option, and this is one of the safer knives as well. All the knives with the finger choil like this, the chances of them folding on your finger and you actually getting cut is next to none. Of course, if you're using knives, always be careful. You know, they're not toys as much as we do like to play with them. But that's just my thoughts, however. While we're on that note, let's just look at this one. The Subcom, I forgot the full name of this one, but this is the titanium version. This is not a friction folder, but it is one-handed opening with that thumb stud. It does have a pocket clip, which that's the only position it's in. Tip up only, right hand carry. Now this one, you can actually open it quite quick if you want. You actually can flick it open, Just because you can, of course, doesn't mean you should. I mean, if you do that in certain areas, you're likely to scare someone. In fact, they'll probably mistake it for a flick knife, which it most certainly is not. Now, the standard price for these is about £60, and boy am I glad I did not pay that for it. £35, which I paid a bit more reasonable. You know, I just, nah. I had higher hopes for this knife, put it that way. Now, this is probably one of the last knives I would consider, especially as a sort of daily user. Maybe for opening a few boxes, perhaps. This is kind of a neck knife as well. This is designed to be worn around your neck as a dog tag, which is a good idea, but the cold metal on the skin I find is quite uncomfortable. And I have actually dropped it a few times, and the price of these, man, that's an expensive little piece of metal just to lose. So for that reason, I don't like carrying it. Of course, you could put it on your keys, but you're likely to scratch it, and that just to me seems terrible, because it is a beautiful little knife. I personally don't like using it though. But there you go, it's an option. It's a UK legal one-handed opening knife. Now here's a similar idea. I reckon that this would also be a reasonable option to wear around the neck if you so wish. But again, same problem, and I find this is a little bit too heavy for my liking. The Boker Plus Rocket. A fairly new, fairly recent knife. This is the Heine Haynes edition. The standard edition is a lock knife, however this one is not. Again, it looks like a lock knife, but it's just a ball joint. I think the cutting edge on that is probably around 2 inches, but as you can see there, you could easily open it with one hand. So it is certainly an option. Another small knife, the Spyderco Squeak. This is a knife that I quite like. I think we've got about 1.5 inches. Excuse me. I think we've got about 1.5 inches on the cutting edge there. I mean, this thing is almost cute. This is another one of those knives that I feel is quite safe. Not too intimidating. Left and right handed. Tip up. I'm not too keen on the price of these. About £60 for that. I mean, that's not too bad. Now, for whatever reason, the pink one, exact same knife with pink scales, is about £80. Why that is, I don't know. Seems kind of silly though. Surely pink dye or pink paint or whatever it is they use doesn't cost 20 quid. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Now we'll just go into the friction folders. I only have, you know what, I actually forgot to bring out a couple of other knives. I've also got the Higo no Kami. That might actually be a reasonable knife too. I mean, I suppose I'm not going to show it now, but the Higo no Kamis, those are also one-handed opening, and the cutting edge is about 3 inches, so that actually might be a reasonable option, and especially since it's only about 20 quid. But anyway, this knife here, the Svard Peasant, these are only about £17, and they come in a reasonable variety of colours, as well as you can also get a clear handled knife, or you can have wood. This is just the plastic one. Absolutely nothing wrong with that though. A very slicey knife. This is fairly easy to open with one hand. A super simple, easy knife. Of course, there's no pocket clip on it though. Very affordable as well at £17. This is by far the most expensive knife out of the lot. I think I paid about £105 for this. The price is upped a little bit since then. The Tops tack rays, I think this is a bit of a gimmick. I personally don't like it too much. This is one of the few knives that I look at and think, why the hell did I buy that? I mean, don't get me wrong, it is kind of cool. It is inspired by a straight razor, a cutthroat razor, a shivet, whatever you want to call it. But to me personally, this is not that practical. I could not think of a single use for this knife. It's not any good for whittling. I don't think it would be the best at opening boxes. You're certainly not opening fruit with it. I don't really see much point in this knife other than because I can. It's kind of cool. I've got the money for it. I want it. That's it. I don't really see much point on it. Can't speak. I don't really see much point other than that. Although it does come with a reasonably nice leather hip sheath. G10 handles on this thing. Now I had wondered actually, is that cutting edge over 3 inches? But no, it's actually under 3 inches. In fact, it's almost like there's 2 separate edges on that. Certainly that's how you would sharpen it. You're not getting much penetration done with this. Honestly, this is one of those knives that I don't see much point in. It's still kind of cool nonetheless. Personally, as a work knife, I just don't think it's a good idea. Now this last knife, this is also kind of cheating. It is a slip joint, it is UK legal, less than 3 inches. It's cheating because that's an aftermarket thumb stud. That said, it really makes a difference on the performance of this knife, being able to open it with one hand. And the thumb studs are not too expensive. The knife itself is around the £50 mark, and it comes in a few different colours. Of course, you can get this digital camouflage, which I think is fantastic. G10 handles, by the way, left or right handed, tip up only. This is definitely a great little knife, and probably one of the hardest uses out of the lot. And again, it's a fairly safe knife because, well, listen to this. 1, 2, whoops, 3, close. So instead of having just one half stop, it's got 3. So it's quite unlikely to fold on you. And you can get a really decent grip. And especially if you do put an aftermarket thumb stud on there, you can get a lot of control. And of course, that's an excellent little drop point blade, flat ground, S90V as well. As you can see there. So to me, this is probably the best option. Buy the knife and buy the aftermarket thumb stud, and to me that's the #1 knife, certainly in my collection, for UK legal carry. And it is a very deep carry, so it's quite concealed. Some of these other knives stick out in the pocket a lot, such as this one. It sort of yells, hey, look at me, I'm different. You know what I mean? Most people don't have knives in their pockets, so if someone was to see that, they might realise, yeah, that's a knife, what you up to? For me, I'd rather just people not know I have a knife. So on a need to know basis, I suppose, and they don't need to know. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.